Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. 100 years ago, the Russian population was spread out across that great land. Cities populated the landscape of Russia from end to end, even in the coldest, hardest areas of Siberia. In Siberia, cities like Vorkuta were once populated, bustling, and had a healthy, vibrant population. And this happened because Russia, with its large landmass of Siberia, is an amazing, incredible place. The scenery is picturesque. And although it has sub-zero temperatures, populations thrived in those areas with healthy, large families, active lifestyles, and growing economies. The natural resources of the Russian landscape are immeasurable and allowed for populations to do quite well in that frozen landscape. But so much of that has changed today. Vorkuta, once a healthy, vibrant city, is now nothing more than a dead carcass. It's rusted down and emptied out. The populations have moved into the packed urban centers of St. Petersburg and Moscow. Although there are some cities still spread out across the country, one cannot look away from so many rusted out, burnt down cities and towns in the Russian landscape. And today, the hallmark achievement of the Russian central planners, of those types who cannot control themselves, they must control others. Their central achievement of all of those Russian bureaucrats who long for a return to the days of the Soviet Union is the city of Kudrova, which is a single apartment building that encompasses an entire city. It has a population of 18,000 residents, all in one single building. To give you an idea of how big that is, here in Texas, the city of Meadows Place has 5,000 residents. Kudrova is more than 3 times the size of the city of Meadows Place. The city of Jersey Village, Texas, is about 8,000 people. So Kudrova is about double the size of Jersey Village, Texas. That means entire cities. Can you imagine your entire city living in one building? This is what has happened in Russia today. To give you an idea of how big this Russian building is, apologize. In fact, going back to this building, there are entire parts of Kudrova that do not receive sunlight because the building is so large that parts of the sun get permanently blocked out. And yet the planners tell us that this is an achievement. How many of those Russian planners live in Kudrova? I bet not any. It is an achievement because those planners have made a big step for the globalist agenda. While Russians have a landscape that is so vast it is incomprehensible, the planners have corralled the Russian people into these mega urban centers like Kudrova. And in America, the same trend is happening as cities like Oil City, Pennsylvania. Oil City, Pennsylvania, a one-time booming small town in western Pennsylvania built on the oil industry, is now dead. These cities like Oil City, Pennsylvania are now emptied out, and the people migrate to our maxed out urban centers like Houston, Texas. And the question is, was this by design? Are we being corralled into a pen like a herd of cattle, being led by our globalist masters and their stooges at the local level? The question is, did the globalists mastermind this plan to centralize populations so that we can all be better managed and controlled? And so the question is, does this trend happen from the vast reaches of the Siberian steppe to cities in Pennsylvania like Oil City, Pennsylvania, to cities and towns in Texas? Are our planners participating in a trend that centralizes us at the cost of our own quality of living and at what ultimate ends? Just over 100 years ago, land here in Texas was being used as an incentive to bring people into this great state. Land was abundant. The Texas Land Acts of the 1800s were used as an incentive to bring different groups here where they were given large parcels of land. Land was abundantly shared. And oftentimes that land was cut up into single-family dwelling units, single-family dwelling parcels. It was zoned for the family so that all of us could have a nice backyard, walkable streets, and a family-oriented neighborhood. But today, all of that has changed. Dallas Forward is a program brought to the residents of Dallas, Texas by their city manager, T.C. Broadnax, which will eliminate single-family housing zoning. Single-family housing zoning, which means one house on a lot, has been the historic way that Dallas was built. It has allowed for beautiful Texas neighborhoods that allowed for backyard barbecues and a dad throwing a football to his sons, allowed for backyard swimming pools. But that type of a family-oriented neighborhood will be going away. In the communist vision of all of us being herded into a corral, developers now have the right to build 4 and 5 buildings on a single unit in Dallas, Texas. Commies are always going to commie. Communists have to take control of our governments through a slow, insidious creep that we allowed to happen because we were asleep at the wheel. But that trend is changing, and it now is our chance to save the country. And this is the Chris Heasley Show. And on this show, we will give you all of the ideas, the content, the information that you need to take back your village, your borough, your township, your city, your county, our great Texas counties, and the state of Texas. But there's an obligation that comes with this show, and the obligation is on you. And the obligation is to get involved at the local level and stop this constant destruction of our livelihood, this constant move towards a globalist agenda, this constant erosion of our rights. Because at the local level is where everything happens. Although we are pounded day in, day out with national level news, it is actually at the local level where things happen. As Sam Adams said, we need 1,000 brush fires for liberty. And that means that we need them at the local level, at the school boards, at the cities, at the county commissioner courts. We have to have citizens get involved and be giving our political representatives a piece of their mind. Tell them what they want to see happen, and do it with the politicians that you agree with and the ones that you don't agree with. They all must know where we stand. And if that happens, we will return our great state of Texas to one that is family oriented, that is built for us and by us, and not aligned with some nefarious foreign agenda. And with that being said, we have a great show. And on today's show, we will be covering the cities of Missouri City, Texas, and Sugar Land, Texas, with our 2 guests. On today's show, we have Clay Foster. Clay, introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Clay Foster. I'm running for Stafford City Council position number 3. I'm a law enforcement officer here in Fort Bend County, and I'm running for City Council to ultimately bring accountability, transparency, public safety back to the city of Stafford.
Awesome. Good deal. Good introduction.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we have with us Carol McCutcheon. Did I pronounce that right?
McCutcheon, that's
Very
right.
good. Awesome.
Yes. But when I first ran for office, I have a big Carol on my logo, little tiny McCutcheon, because they said people won't be able to spell your name, pronounce your name, or remember it. So I just say, call me Carol. But anyway, I've served on city council as the District 4 council member for 8 years, longer than any other current city council member. I was mayor pro tem from 2019 to 2020. And yes, I'm running to be the next mayor of Sugar Land. And as the next mayor, I wouldn't allow single-family homes to be eliminated from the zoning like they're doing up there in Dallas. That's shocking.
Well, let's go ahead and start there. I mean, tell me what you think of, because I believe that law passed, Dallas Forward passed in Dallas. And so now I think that they're able to build as many as 4 or 5 buildings on one lot. And so, there's extensive writing on this by the citizens, and the city planner and city council just went forward with this in spite of the protest of the citizens. And the one argument that the people are making is that the reason that Dallas is such a great city is because of the single family unit zoning, because all of the neighborhoods were built around the family unit, and they're attempting to take that away. Tell me what your opinion is on Dallas Forward, if you have one.
Oh yeah, this is the first that I heard about it, but yeah, that's nothing that I would support coming to Sugar Land. Absolutely not, because I believe in keeping Sugar Land suburban, keeping it a great place to live, work, and raise a family. I mean, if we wanted to be in a high density population, we'd be there, but the people in Sugar Land moved there because they really value that suburban lifestyle.
Right.
But I agree with you about people getting engaged at the local level, because when campaigning, I'll talk to some people and they'll say, I only vote in a presidential election. And that's very disappointing to hear because the local stuff, affects you every single day. But in the school board council elections, there may only be, 8 to 16%. Is that probably similar to what your council races have?
That's about
Which is a
right.
pretty low voter turnout. So you have 8 to 16% of the voters voting on the people who are going to make these decisions that impact your life on a day-to-day basis. So, if you have somebody trying to break into your house, I mean, the Sugar Land Police Department's going to show up. Nothing from the federal government. If you got a fire, Sugar Land firefighters are going to be showing up. If you've got a heart attack, you've got Sugar Land EMS. So, we provide the water. We also keep the roads, sidewalks, traffic lights, in order. We have our parks and green spaces. We do the stuff that impacts your life day in, day out. And in many ways, it impacts you more than what goes on at the federal level. So I always encourage people to, get involved, get the right people elected to these local races, and then also stay involved. And when these issues come up, planning and zoning and other issues, contact your council members, go to the council meetings and speak out, get a petition going, get involved.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off that, if I can, the local accountability is always a word people like to throw out there. And the only way to hold government officials at the local level, especially accountable, is to go to the meetings and to stay going to the meetings. Whether or not what's happening at that specific meeting directly impacts you, it probably impacts somebody that you know. And it's important to go and keep going and get involved every way you can. You're right. It impacts everybody, but it's got the least participation, lowest level participation.
And now you can even watch online, so you don't even have to go. You can
Yeah,
just be
you
doing
can.
stuff at your house and just have it on listed in the background too.
So, okay, great. That's a great segue into what we should talk about. Both of you are running for office. Open question here. What motivates you to run for public office?
Yeah. Well, first, let me tell you a little bit about my background. Let me share that with the listeners up front. So, my husband and I have been married for 37 years, and we've lived in Sugar Land since 1993. And I've got a bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering, and I have an MBA in finance and management. And I worked as a reservoir engineer in the oil business for a long time. And those that logical mindset and the detail orientation and also the financial side have been things that have served me really well since I've been on city council. So I'm a graduate of Sugar Land 101 and the Sugar Land Citizens Police and Fire and Airport Academies. And I've been going to off and on to planning and zoning meetings and council meetings since the 1990s when there was an issue that concerns me. Back in 2003, City Council appointed me to serve on the City Charter Review Commission, and the City Charter is what governs our city, and that's convened every 5 years to make changes to be compatible with state law and to put changes, propose changes to voters to see if they'd like to make any changes to that. And then I did serve on the Land Use Advisory Committee, and it went on for years. And a big component of that was apartments, the future of apartments there. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But anyway, as far as leadership, I'm a former president of the Women's Energy Network of Houston, and I have co-chaired different charity fundraisers to benefit women and children. And I'm a graduate of the Fort Bend Leadership Forum, Leadership Houston, Leadership Texas, and Leadership America. And in 2003, over 20 years ago, I was selected to be one of the Fort Bend Women of the Year. And in 2022, I was honored to be one of the top 50 most influential women of Houston. So I am really well prepared with the knowledge and experience to take the next step to becoming the mayor of Sugar Land.
Were those awards given to you because of your corporate experience or because of your extra, I don't know what the word is, your public service?
It was my public service, based on my public service. I've been retired from the energy business for a while. Yeah. So I just, to answer your question, I really love Sugar Land, and I love giving back to the city, and I just want to keep it a great, welcoming, thriving place for the future.
Very good.
Well, and I'm running for Stafford City Council because, well, Stafford's a very important place to me. It's a special place. It was somewhere that when I first moved to the Houston area, I was immediately drawn to. And I ran a hotel in Stafford. I had a career in hospitality management before I went into law enforcement. And when I ran the hotel in Stafford, we had a really good relationship with the city officials. We would have police officers that would come by. We knew them by name, and they'd come by every day, and we knew them, and if we had concerns, we could talk to them. Well, after I went to the police academy, I started working right next door to Stafford, and I started seeing a very disturbing trend of officers leaving the city of Stafford, and not just a few, several. And with those officers leaving, we lost a lot of experience. So it became very concerning to me that the financial problems were bleeding through to public safety, and that seemingly we were not getting anywhere as a city on addressing it and correcting it. And as you know, the labor market's gotten very competitive. Salaries are increasing, benefits are increasing, and it's hard to compete when you're already behind. But we've got a big problem, and I want to get our city back on track with public safety, and I want to do it in a responsible way. I feel like I'm qualified to do that after running a business in Stafford and also being in law enforcement, being on the front lines, on the streets with the officers of Stafford. I've had to go out there and help them several times because they're short-staffed. They don't have enough people. Wow. Call volume's very high over there, so just getting pulled out of my own jurisdiction to go into Stafford and work with these officers, see the front lines firsthand what equipment is missing, essential safety equipment. So it got very personal to me, and then last year the city council had a budget proposal to address it, and it was something that would let the voters decide what we wanted to do moving forward, and they blocked it. And that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I went and voiced my opinion, and that's really what got this process started, because I wanted to see the city go in a different direction, and I was, like a lot of other residents, frustrated that city council did what they wanted to do versus what the public wanted them to do. So, in my time in law enforcement, though, I currently hold the rank of sergeant. I've been the recipient of Life-Saving Award, a Chief's Award of Service. So several awards that I've received that, just kind of back up my credentials, that I've been out there, I've done the work, I continue to do the work, and every day I hear what's going on, not just in Stafford, but regionally with crime. We got a real problem. We got to take it into our own hands and take the initiative to make the city safe again.
What city were you a police officer with?
I'm a police officer with City of Meadows.
I knew that's where I saw you. You're sitting here telling me that. I'm going, man, I think he pulled me over before.
I might have. I don't know.
No, you did, because
Uh-oh.
That's a small world here.
Yeah. In Meadows Place, if you roll through a stop sign, you get pulled over.
Oh, yeah. Stop signs are my big thing. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I was going to tell you, I saw a Meadows police officer roll through a stop sign.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah. I was going to razz him, but I'm like, yeah, it might not work out well.
But anytime I think of Meadows Place, I think of the former mayor, Charlie Jessup. He would always say, Meadows Place, 1 square mile of wonderful.
1 square mile of wonderful.
That's what he said for many years.
Yeah. Oh, man. He was, what he was very big on was whenever he'd get a bargain buy for the city, he'd always point to things, say, you see that? I got that for us half off. It kind of reminded me of my dad, because that's how my dad was. Yeah. But that's amazing. I thought, I'm sitting here and hearing you saying you're a police officer. I'm like, man, if he says Meadows Place, man. Yep. Well, we'll talk more about that. I run through Meadows Place all the time. I'm sure you've seen me running. I used to push my daughter and run, and I'd bike and pull my daughter. But anyways, we'll talk more about that. That's very interesting.
It's a great city for walking, running, outside activities. It's very safe, so it's a great place for doing that. Yeah. And the stop signs are enforced, so you don't have to worry about that too much if you're out there jogging.
Yep. So, great show. Carol, let's start off with Sugar Land. Tell me, what is the state of Sugar Land today? How are things going? What are the issues? What's the condition of Sugar Land, Texas?
Okay. Well, my number one priority is public safety, and we have a low crime rate in Sugar Land. We work really hard to make sure that our first responders are, compensated well, that we try to be fully staffed, and it's the entire city council's priority to make sure that they have the training and the resources, they need to keep themselves safe so they can keep us safe. And it's really important, particularly to do the simulator training, because as officers, firefighters or whatever, they've got split seconds to make decisions. So that training is just really, really critical for them. And then also infrastructure rehabilitation is important to me because the city's 65 years old, and that's something we work hard to stay on top of. If not, you'll end up like Houston, which has a big, problem with roads and other infrastructure. And then also redevelopment is a really big thing. But so to address the infrastructure, we had a bond election in November, and we had $350 million of projects on the ballot, and they all passed. The biggest component was public safety to expand the police station, also our public safety training facilities, and then roads, sidewalks, mobility-related things were on there. Drainage. Drainage has been very important because back in 2017 with Hurricane Harvey, we had houses that flooded. And so then also in the May 2019 rain event, we had more houses flood, and some of them flooded in both events. So we have been working on drainage. We had about $48 million in drainage projects approved back in the 2019 bond election, and we had an additional $35 million of drainage projects approved in this one. We also had money to rehabilitate our municipal facilities, and then also, we had additional funds for the animal shelter. And that's something that's important because back in 2015, a master plan identified that even then, our animal shelter was insufficient. And then 2017, 2 years later, we annexed Greatwood and New Territory. So that increased our population 34% overnight. And so with that, that's going to come with more, animals that need care. And so in 2019, we passed a bond for $6.6 million for the animal shelter. Then next year was COVID, 2020, so we didn't want to raise the tax rate for the animal shelter at the time. And then also, then there were changes in state law that increased the capacity of each cage. And so then also after COVID, more people were turning animals in. They went back to work, they were giving animals away or just letting them out on the streets. So we were running into capacity issues. So in this particular bond election, then we had another $12 million of supplemental funds that we put. So now we're going to be building a really, really, big new animal shelter so that we can accommodate the animals. And so I'm really, excited that we're going to be doing that. And one thing, we have been closed to intake quite a bit recently, but we've been really focusing on getting our animals adopted. So we were able to open recently the intake again on the animal shelter. So that's really important because we need to take care of our furry friends as well as our regular people. And then traffic mobility is always an issue because, Fort Bend County is one of the fastest growing counties in the entire United States. And you've got a lot of through traffic that's going through Sugar Land and also on Highway 6 and Highway 90. So we've widened the roads about as much as we can. So the last road widening project is about to finish up. So now we've been working on traffic technology so that the traffic lights can communicate with each other and change the traffic patterns according to what the traffic is at the time. So we've been working on that. And something that was just released about a week ago is what we call micro-transit, and it's an 18 square mile pilot zone in the city of Sugar Land, and you can have an app or I guess on your phone too, and it's day of service, and a van will come pick you up and drop you off within that 18 square mile radius. And for the first month, it's free. And then after that, it's going to be $2 a ride. And we got some grant funding to do this. And so it's going to help reduce, congestion. And also if somebody doesn't have a car or they are unable to drive because they're elderly or having a health issue, they can be picked up and, dropped off at the doctor's office or the grocery store or something like that. And it is a ride share. So, they can pick up other people along the way. So this is a brand new thing that we're trying right now. So excited to see what that brings. And if that's successful, we'll expand that out.
So if we'll jump to Missouri City in a second.
Yeah, and
I'll be asking you the same questions. But if we could break it down, can you give me what is this state of crime in Sugar Land today? Of course, we're real close to Houston, and we know the crime there is rampant. It seems like Sugar Land's able to sort of seal itself off from that stuff, but we're always concerned that it's going to bleed over the border. What is the state of crime in Sugar Land?
We have a pretty low crime rate, and my goal is to keep us one of the safest cities in Texas. But we have amazingly low crime rate. But that's because of the the staffing level of the police officers, and like I said, the equipment they have, the training, the resources and stuff. That's our number one thing. And this and to build on what Clay was saying, staffing, the cost of salaries have just been going skyrocketing, particularly for the public safety. So back this past summer, we made a significant increase to the compensation of our first responders, and we also had to increase the compensation of our other staff. But we had to make it significantly with our first responders to be competitive in the marketplace and be able to attract and retain the top quality officers that we have. And our maintenance and operation budget is probably about 75% to pay the salaries of our staff. So,
So, okay, Clay, we'll hand it off to you then. Go ahead and tell us how you see Missouri City today. What are the driving issues, and what do you should you get elected? What do you plan to tackle as councilman?
Yeah, so currently for the city of Stafford, what we have is financially alone is a budget deficit, operational deficit of about $3 million a year and growing. And that's now the second year in a row. The previous mayor, Cecil Willis, built up a savings account for our city. And that savings account was set aside for 3 months of emergency expenses if something happened. And we're spending that money, city council is spending that money at an alarming rate, and that fund is dwindling. So with that, we're stuck. We're stuck. You hear about what cities around Stafford are doing and moving forward, and we've kind of, in Stafford, have put ourselves in a box. We're so limited right now. We can't move forward until we address that funding problem, that $3 million a year budget deficit. So as that problem persists, other problems are worsening. So our streets are getting worse, our street signs, the general appearance of our city. Like you said, Fort Bend County is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. When people move to Fort Bend County, we want them to look at the city of Stafford and say, that's a place I'd like to live. And in order to do that, I think we need to have a beautiful city. But we can't have a beautiful city until we fix the fact that we're spending $3 million a year out of our savings account. I don't feel that that's a responsible way to pay for the city's needs. When that money's gone, big decisions have to be made. And those decisions can have big impacts on people. If we spent all that money, property tax rate would have to go through the roof. We don't want to do that. Whereas right now, if we were to sit down, roll up our sleeves, and work together, put our minds together, find a way to work through this problem while it's small, we don't have to make decisions that are going to have big impacts on folks. So that's really the premise. The state of the city is that we're kind of stuck right now, and I think that we've gotten real used to the way business has always been done, and it's time to bring some fresh ideas to the table. And that's what I've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to keep trying to do. On council, I feel like I work well with people. Team building, group activities. Those are things that I have done in my law enforcement career. You have to work as a team. You have to. and in hospitality management, building a team. So I feel like when I'm on council, I'll be able to work with the colleagues, the rest of council, the mayor, and you know, I don't expect to walk away with 50%, 75%, 100%. I just want to move this city forward. And if I get, you know, my agenda moved through, then the city moves forward. If I don't, but we do something else and the city moves forward, it's still a win. And that's the mentality I want to try to bring to that body so that we can move that city forward.
So where's the financial bleeding? How did they overspend $3 million?
Well, we are the only city in Fort Bend County and one of only 12 cities statewide that has no city-level property tax, and that was gone away with in 1995. In 1995, because Stafford is 80%, almost 80% commercial, the sales tax base has historically been enough to pay for the city. However, obviously costs go up. You know, the business demographics, they change over time. So you have businesses maybe in 1995 that, you know, they sold items that were higher dollar value and brought in more money. And then as the business demographics, the economic climate has shifted, and we're not really bringing in enough anymore. So it's just kind of the costs are outpacing the revenues. And I think looking at the city operationally and how the business is running there, you know, there's not a whole lot of waste. There's not a whole lot of inefficiencies that would make up for that $3 million. So, and a property tax isn't the only way to solve the problem. Like I said, if we make decisions now, we can do other things. One of the things I proposed is a crime control prevention district, which would work off of the sales tax money. So, you know, that $3 million shortfall, it didn't happen overnight either. It was slowly, year after year. You know, it got a little worse, There was a hiring freeze that started during COVID. That's when it really got bad, by the way, was when COVID hit and a lot of businesses closed. But the hiring freeze hit during COVID, and the police department ended up with almost 19 frozen positions. Those positions have remained frozen still 5 years after COVID. So really, when you look at what's authorized in terms of certain personnel positions and contracts that fluctuate year over year, our deficit is, that's why I say $3 million and growing, because it's actually bigger than $3 million.
We expect 2025 to be a record year for business, or if not 2025, 2026. There's a lot of things happen at the national level that should make that happen. Did you say that business is sort of hurting a little bit there in Stafford, where you're primarily a commercial district? Is that what I heard you say, or?
Well, I think it's more that over the last 30 years, we've seen some businesses leave and then be replaced by other businesses that just have a different business model. Some, you know, one of the things is these warehouses that we've been building, and warehouses being, you know, usually wholesale fulfillment organizations. They're not even collecting sales tax money. And we've authorized a lot of these warehouses to be built. A lot of our land has been used for these warehouses. We've got vacant offices or shopping centers with vacant businesses. And so I think it's just businesses leaving, new businesses coming in, or businesses leaving, and nobody fills that spot. You know, it's just a change in that larger business demographic, the segments that occupy our city's commercial space.
So do you think that that those businesses and those warehouses should be taxed?
What I think we should do is look at, there's a variety of options that we can look at. I think that property taxes are obviously, they're an ugly thing. It's something that nobody likes, you know what I mean? Nobody likes property taxes, but the state of Texas does say, for city finance, you've got your 1.5% sales tax, you've got your property tax, and then you've got your fees for your permits and licenses. But you can't use those permitting fees to fund the city. It can only be used for the cost of what it takes to do the inspection or so on and so forth. One of the things that we do and a lot of other cities do is an economic development corporation that receives 0.5 cents on sales tax. That 0.5 cents can be divided And I think given the situation that we're in with public safety, with our infrastructure, so on and so forth, we should take that half cent that the SEDC, the Stafford Economic Development Corporation, is receiving, put it in half. They'd still have enough money to pay for what they got going on. And that other quarter cent, put it into that crime control prevention district that I was talking about. And that would be $3 million. And it wouldn't solve all of our problems, but we could at least stop, plug the hole, stop the sinking, and invest in our crucial public safety needs. When I talk to the residents of Stafford, that's their biggest concern, is public safety. They see what's going on. They see the trend, not just in our city, but next door in Houston. Like you said, it's getting out of control. So Crime Control and Prevention District would not put a property tax on. Now, I think when we talk long-term, investing in capital needs, we have operational needs that should be invested in and expanded or grown, then that is where we probably need to look at a property tax. And that property tax is something that it's a conversation that needs to be had. And one of the biggest things is you got to let people know, if you're going to talk about a property tax, you got to let people know why we need it. And back in January, there was a revenue workshop where the citizens were called in to give the city council ideas on how to raise revenue. Well, crucial part of that meeting was where the department heads, the chief of police, the fire chief, head of planning and permitting, and all these other departments were going to present to the citizens that were in attendance that night why we need as a city more money. And council removed that part of the meeting that night. They took it off the agenda that night when people were already there. And I thought that was a very bad move when we're talking about something as serious as a tax, and you got to tell people why you need that money. If I walked up to the city council and said, I need $1,000, can you give me ideas on how you want to make that happen? Their first question is, why do you need $1,000? The public has the same question. Why do you need a property tax? But you don't want to tell us, So when I say bring a transparency to City Hall, that's exactly what I mean. We got to bring the people in the room, and present where we're at, and then let the decisions be made. Let the ideas come in.
Trying to balance it back here between both cities here.
Yeah, so redevelopment is an important thing that we can talk about.
Please, yes.
Okay, so I guess the big issue that's going to be going on in Sugar Land is redevelopment. We only have 4% of undeveloped land in the city. So the city, we're in the process of purchasing the Imperial Historic District, and that's something very, very different for us. The Char House is the iconic symbol of Sugar Land. That's the sugar mill. That's where everything started. And that building is going to be 100 years old later this year. And that site has been top on the list to be redeveloped. And it's been in the hands of developers for about 20 years. And the developers have not been able to develop it. And largely because the number one criteria that the city would set was that they had to restore the Char House, or at least preserve it to some degree, before they could do the rest of their development. Because the thought was if they got to do their development first and then the criteria to preserve the Char House was last, well, it would never get done. So that has not been redeveloped for over 20 years. So we as a city decided to take a very different approach and purchase. We're in the process of purchasing that Imperial Historic District, and then we are going to preserve it ourselves, and then we're going to work with a master developer, and we're going to have a master developer come up with a development plan for that area, and that's something that's going to take a lot of careful engagement with the community to make sure that the development is going to be, compatible with the community's values. And we're not funding it with property tax dollars. We have the Sugar Land Development Corporation, the Sugar Land 4B Corporation, which is what you touched on. And because, we get 2 cents of the sales tax dollars, and the state gets 6 1/4. So we have a 1/4 cent goes to the Sugar Land Development Corporation, which can fund tax incentives, tax abatements to attract and retain businesses in the city. And then we also have the Sugar Land 4B Corporation, which also gets a quarter cent of the sales tax revenue, which can be used also again for economic incentives for businesses or quality of life. And so the purchase of this property is going to be funded by the Sugar Land Development Corporation and Sugar Land 4B corporations over time. But the intent is not for the city to become the developer. The intent is for, like I said, a master developer to come up with a plan, and then for a developer to do the development. So the city, will be, selling the property or doing some sort of a transaction. They're not going to be the actual developer. So that's going to be something that, like I said, is going to be something we'll need a lot of community engagement on, because a big component of that obviously is going to be residential, and developers like to have density and have apartments because it's easier to get loans when they have apartments, and the more density they have, then the more profit they can make on things. But then you've got the residents who live around the area, and so they're going to want to make sure that it's going to be, in balance with their, suburban lifestyle, and not, impact the traffic and schools and that kind of stuff. So, as the next mayor, I would want to make sure that, we fully engage the community and do something that's going to be, compatible with them, and not do something like you're talking about in Dallas and just really cram a whole bunch of people, in there.
So can you give me some ideas, like what is that going to look like when it's done? I know you don't have it fully hammered out, but potentials. What are some potentials?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Char House itself, as I said, is historical significance, and there's some other buildings.
The Char House is the large building.
Yes, that large building that right there on Highway 90, and it has some foundation issues, and people, shot out the windows, and there's moisture problems inside.
It's empty, right?
Yeah, it's been empty because it was used to actually char the sugar cane a long time ago, but it's always been empty for a long time, and there's a lot of different possibilities on there. There's a world of possibilities. But, it would have, I say it's obviously going to have residential component, but some restaurants, some shops, probably some limited commercial office and some public spaces. But that's where the master developer would come in and, come up with a vision for the site. And there's the Pearl in San Antonio, which was an old brewery there, and they've redeveloped that area. And so the thought is to have something sort of similar here in Sugar Land with the Char House as the focus. And of course, you can get federal and state historical tax credits, for the preservation of that. So that's something very different, for the city to take on that role. But since, it's one of those things, if the same things happen for 20 years, it's just going to keep on keeping on with the same results. And then, meanwhile, the Char House is just further deteriorating, every year. And so we say we need to do something to basically, save the Char House. And so the first thing that the city will do, assuming the transaction closes within the next, couple of months, is to work on, preserving the Char House until future development can be done on that.
So the building itself would be apartments, or buildings would be attached to it? I personally, I would like the building to either stay vacant or maybe have some sort of a museum or something on the ground floor. It's never been used as, it's never had any floors in it. And it's an empty building.
It's just an empty building that they would use it's a large empty building that was used to char sugarcane. There was a previous developer who had looked at actually trying to turn it into business office, and the cost was off the charts, like around $60 million or something. And what he was going to do was going to build like a little attachment onto the building that could have an elevator and water and that kind of stuff, because it was going to be cost prohibitive to, make it that. So I think it'd be very, very costly to try to turn that into a usable space. I mean, it's not impossible. It just would require tens of millions of dollars. But I said, so it's going to be, residential. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of a apartment component in there. And then also there's other types of housing housing products that could be in there, townhomes or some sort of urban type homes. So, it remains to be seen. But the idea is that for it to be a walkable mixed use development. But then they said the issue is going to be the density of the residential is going to be an issue, and it'll be important to get citizen input and strike a balance there. And then also we have the Lake Point site that will be redeveloped too over the next few years. Fleur had their headquarters there for a long time, and then they recently moved to the energy corridor. So that building is probably 40-some years old, very large building, and people don't work the way that building is laid out now. And so that site is up for sale, and it's also a pretty large site, and it's on the water. And so that's probably going to be turned into something with a fairly heavy residential component, and of course also some restaurants and shops. And there's a water feature there, so people can walk around the water, have some outdoor restaurant seating and enjoy the water. But again, there's, I guess, interest in what they're saying is more of a middle housing. So it's not, I'm sure there'll be apartments there too, but then also some other residential that's probably single family homes, but on more of an urban type thing with very small yards, possibly some duplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes. So again, that's going to be another issue that'll need community involvement, so that the density issue is balanced there. So those are the two big things that I see coming, is the redevelopment of Imperial, redevelopment of Lake Point, and then have a balanced approach so that the density doesn't overwhelm the area.
Where's Lake Point at? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Okay, Lake Point. Do you know where the Whole Foods is? It's at the it's near the northeast corner of Highway 6 and Highway 90.
And 59.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, 6 and 59. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it has that big water. I don't want to say it's a lake because it's not a lake. It's a big water.
It's a lake there.
It's a lake?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a lake, right? And so so that's
the
where
lake is hidden behind the building, so you could live in Sugarland forever and a day and not know it exists.
But anyway, it's back there. Yeah, I don't see it from afar. But anyway, that's an area that's there's a couple of hotels there. But anyway, there's a lot of potential there. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that too.
And so, regarding your campaign right now, what is the state of your campaign? How are things looking?
I've got 5 opponents. And I know at least 3 of us are currently on city council, and we're all working very, very hard and just trying to get the word out. So I have largely a grassroots type campaign. Just because, other means can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So, focusing on the grassroots. And I said, trying to get people, aware that there's election, because people know about the November elections and some know about the March elections, but some people really don't clue in about a May election. So it's just trying to educate people and get them to the polls to vote.
Well, when some of my friends in the area found out that you were going to be on this show, they started texting me and saying, I want to meet personally with you. So I think we're setting that up for you to meet with some local residents.
That would be great, because that's important, because I love to meet with residents, get them a chance to know me, and I like to hear their concerns firsthand, and I like to have a chance for them to ask me questions and respond. So I'd absolutely love to do that. That would be great. Yeah, sooner the better. Early voting is, believe it or not, it's almost here. Early voting, April 22nd through the 29th. So we're counting down. And then election is May 3rd. But I always tell people, early vote. Don't wait till election day, because you never know what can happen on election day. So, but I'm working hard, not getting a lot of sleep. But anyway, I'm enjoying it.
So Clay, are there any current events that are pertinent in Stafford? Like, for example, the things she was mentioning, the projects and those sorts of things. Is anything like that happening in your area? What are the current events?
Well, we are developing. Stafford is growing. We got the grid development, which is very similar to what y'all are talking about with the Imperial. With the grid, it's mixed use. So we've got apartments going in. We've got a lot of businesses coming in, one of which is a Super Target. We'll be home to Super Target here in Stafford. So there are exciting things happening, and the grid is an attraction. It's bringing people into our city, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And so on top of that, we're also doing, our city council's also putting together a plan to revitalize some of our not super exciting, but street signs. I'm excited about it. They're putting a plan together to revitalize a lot of the street signs that are faded, and another thing that we're starting to talk about is using the hotel tax money
the hot money.
put in signage and kind of branding Stafford in a way to ideally, when people are coming into Stafford, staying in our hotels for various events that bring people in, keep them in Stafford, have them eat local, shop local. We want them to know how to get around in the city of Stafford, not cross the line into Sugar Land spending money there.
No, we want those tax dollars.
But those are exciting things that we are doing right now. But there is a lot of improvement and development going on in the grid. And I think the grid is really becoming kind of the crown jewel attraction for the city of Stafford. It's a beautiful development.
And we've gone to Lazy Dog a few times recently, and we've taken our dog, and we'll sit outside on the little porch and stuff. And he really likes going, and they have a dog menu and everything.
They do.
So he orders off the dog menu.
Okay, are you talking about the old Hewlett-Packard building?
Yes, yeah, that area.
Yes, right there off of, was Texas Instruments for a long time, right there off West Airport in 59.
And so in what's I apologize, okay, because you were telling me the story, and I'm thinking way out in Stafford, but this is like a stone throw from my house.
It is.
And so what's the ultimate ends of that project?
Well, ultimately, when it's fully developed, I believe that there's going to be a couple of, the plan is, or was, I'm not sure if the developers have changed it, but there was plans for 2 hotels. There was plans for basically integrating the entire grid, so the residential area with the apartments. There's 5 complexes total with the commercial side, and doing, there's plans for bike rentals where you can rent a bike and ride it around and just kind of get outside. It's supposed to be a community gathering. Now, some of the business plans have changed since it was originally announced, but we're still getting quite a bit of businesses coming and developing out there. But it's ultimately going to be very, connected in terms of the residential being connected to the commercial, but still feeling like, if you're just stopping by, the grid from somewhere else, you're not going to have that feeling like you're, in someone's living room. The apartments aren't on top of the businesses. It's separate, but it's connected, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of like my driving motivation in writing my opening monologue is, one of my concerns is that we know Meadows Place. Meadows Place is residential, single-family unit housing, an incredible neighborhood surrounded by some very questionable neighborhoods. And as a Meadows Place officer that our police, we have a good amount of police there for that reason, and they're patrolling, they're on duty, and they keep Meadows Place safe. And so when I see those apartment buildings go up, that triggers my concern because, I have a colleague in Philadelphia. He's in suburban Philadelphia, and the planners out there are just overwhelming the county with apartment buildings with renters. And of course, we know renters don't take a vested interest in the community. And so as a Meadows Place resident, that is what causes me to be concerned, is seeing all those high-rise towers going up. And then when I see what happened up there in Dallas, where they made this sweeping change, where they just went ahead and changed single-family unit housing to where developers can put 3, 4, 5 buildings on a lot, it just really puts into perspective what their end goal is, which is these neighborhoods that are no longer, community-based. And so, tell me what you think. Do you see that? Is there anything happening to sort of buffer these apartment buildings being developed? Is that the only part of Stafford where that's happening? Are there single-family housing, developments that are intact in place? You understand what I'm trying to say here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
So the grid is a a big development with apartments and businesses. Now there are single-family homes being developed in Stafford as well. So we've got a couple of developments. One of them's off of Dulles near the Sugarland line. There's houses being developed out there. There's houses being developed in the city, and that is, I think, when it comes to renters, right, apartments and single-family homes. One of the things I think that the city could do is, I think civic engagement can kind of give people, whether they are renting or owning, a sense of community and a sense of responsibility. And I think once you can establish those two things with a person who rents or a person who owns, then you can get that vested interest in some form, right? It's not a economic investment per se of buying a house, but I think we can get a civic engagement and a sense of responsibility even with the renter community. But I also think that we need to put some standards that are enforced on the codes for these apartment complexes. When the apartment complexes themselves are not held accountable to the standards of the city, and Sugarland does a great job of this, but if the apartment complexes are not held to that standard, the appearance goes down and the rents go down, and then things change, you know what I mean? And what we really should try to do is put some standards in place and say, hey, look, the parking lot lights have to work. That's a city ordinance or something like that, and just keep the standards set at a reasonable level so that we're not driving businesses out, we're not driving people out, but we're striking a balance, and we're raising the bar a little bit, but also engaging the community and increasing that civic engagement.
Very good. Well, just to finish up, I'll hand it off to you, Clay. I mean, do you have any last things you want to say about your campaign, about what your goals are? Any last statements?
Yeah, my campaign is really about just listening to the people and being a change. I want to be a breath of fresh air. I want to be a voice of the people and a voice of the city. I think that as a law enforcement officer, it really helps me because there's some synergies between that career and elected office. As a police officer, you're an ambassador of your city. You're a communications problem solver, and that's really what our elected officials are supposed to be: ambassadors, problem solvers, communicators. So my goal is to just take those values from my private sector career, from law enforcement, bring them to city council, and one way or another move the city forward and increase that civic engagement so that we can move our city forward in a responsible way that's not going to leave anybody out, leave anybody behind.
Very good. Excellent. Carol, any last comments?
Do I have time to talk about erosion, or I just have a couple minutes?
No, please.
Oh, okay. One issue that's been impacting Sugarland is the Brazos River. The Brazos River, the rivers are going to change course over time. And then with Hurricane Harvey, we also have had a significant amount of erosion occur. Memorial Park lost 200 feet as a result of the Hurricane Harvey. So we have been working closely with about 20 different agencies and groups to get funding to help stem the erosion of the river, because some studies were done at A&M a few years back, and of course, there was the differences in the modeling and stuff, different scenarios. But one of the scenarios had the river eroding most of Memorial Park and going almost to University Boulevard, which is a very important road in our city, and also potentially eroding, coming close to homes in Greatwood and New Territory. So we worked, and through the Texas General Land Office, got about $42 million of funding between Fort Bend County and City of Sugarland to put some materials in place to stem the Brazos River erosion. So that's very important. And also, TxDOT saw that, wow, what was going on with the Brazos River erosion, and they are currently doing a 3-year project on the bridge over the Brazos River there on 59 near University, and they're moving the pilings 1,000 feet north proactively, which is a good thing because you don't want to just let the bridge suddenly collapse and be without a bridge, because that's a very incredibly important artery. So they are proactively moving those pilings 1,000 feet north, which is a 3-year project to deal with the Brazos River erosion. So that's another important issue that we've been working on. And also there's the Fort Bend Subsidence District. There was a mandate that was put in place probably about in the mid-2015, that time frame, where cities would have to go, instead of using 100% groundwater, would need to have 30% surface water. So we spent probably about $70 million at the time to do that. Then there was another unfunded mandate to go to 60% surface water conversion by 2025. But I got involved in that process, and I guess raised awareness about that, and also looked back at some of the old modeling summaries from 2012 when they did the work, and I didn't feel like they had accounted for the aquifer recharge rate correctly. And also the aquifer pressures haven't been declining, they've actually been rising. So I didn't see a need for us to spend, like $94 million on going to this 60% conversion, at least not now. And so I called on, I said, we need a new model. We need to look at this, and we need to postpone putting this, having this mandate enacted, because not only was it going to cost us a ton of money, it was going to cost all the cities, hundreds of millions of dollars collectively. And I said, we need to put this on hold. And we have an appointee, Sugar Land does, and so do a lot of the other cities. And so basically the Fort Bend County Mayors and Council Members Association and the city staff got together, and we went to the Fort Bend Subsidence District Board's meetings and put pressure on them, and they did put that on hold, and a new model is being developed to just really to see where things are going to be. Now, of course, a component of that, though, is population increase. And so, of course, people are moving from the United States all over to Texas. So we are going to see a significant, increase in population. So that also can affect subsidence. And the Fort Bend Subsidence District is part of the Houston, Galveston area subsidence district, where there is some subsidence there. So it's a pretty complicated process. But so I was really, proud that I was able to get this, this $94 million expenditure, put on hold until it could be studied, have a new model built that took, the next, 13 years of history into account, because I don't want us to spend a bunch of money on something, if we don't need it or until we need it. So that's one thing where that engineer has come in pretty useful there. But I said, I've got the knowledge, experience, and leadership skills.
And the energy.
And the energy. Oh, I'm like the Energizer Bunny to keep Sugar Land strong and vibrant. And I've got a track record of success, and I am passionate about our city, and I have a strategic vision. And I said my main tenets are: I want to keep Sugar Land safe, keep Sugar Land suburban, keep Sugar Land sweet, and I will do that while as serving, listening, and leading. So.
Excellent.
Okay.
Very good. I think this was an excellent hour. I got a full education on Stafford. On
and you
Missouri
found out
City.
who pulled you
Stafford.
over.
Stafford. I apologize. Say that again. Sorry.
You found out who pulled you over that time.
Yeah, I know. Hey, he was doing his job.
Oh, no,
I
I'm
rolled
just
the stop sign.
That was bad. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should not do that. But early voting again, April 22nd through the 29th, and we need everyone to come out and vote and it's city council and it's also school board. And those are very important races, affect your day-to-day life. So get engaged at the local level.
That's absolutely right. Engagement is huge right now. We've got to get people engaged.
Good deal. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you both. And this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. We will be back next Saturday.